Hi, everybody. I'm Erin Guyton, if we've not met before. How does somebody with a fine art background become a numbers expert in the home inspection industry? And so what happened with me was I got out of school with an art major, and I quickly discovered that artists need to pay bills and earn a living. And I took a job in an office. And it didn't take long for me to figure out that I loved working with numbers. And not just working with them, just like, why do they talk to each other? What are the numbers telling you? What's behind the numbers? And so I spent a few decades working in business, and I wanted to know why I knew things about business. I didn't know why I knew them, and I didn't know exactly how to solve problems. And so I got an MBA, and the cool thing about that is that I did it after my work experience, not before. And that really what it was for me was a toolbox. It gave me a toolbox to understand the why behind the numbers. And then my artistic background allowed me to see things, because artists really are, it's more about what you see, not what you can paint. And so I started writing business plans. And I've written business plans up until very recently. And I did some work for an inspection company. And the first thing they asked me to do was to figure out, they had one person, it was a single operator, and they said, I want you to go figure out the best way to pay a home inspector. And so that was my first project, was looking at home inspector pay models. I got asked that question last week. I got asked that question the week before. How do we pay our inspectors is still a very pertinent question. Then I did the market share analysis for this company, and they didn't understand even why they should be looking at it or what it meant. And from there, they brought me to a home inspection conference, and then I got sucked into the home inspection business. And so I worked in home inspection for a number of years, and then in 2020, so many other home inspection companies were asking me to help them understand what their books were telling them that I went out full-time consulting and writing business plans, and I've been doing that. As part of that work, I work for maybe 100, maybe over 100 companies looking at their books, but then this number is now up to about 140, 150 because I got into mergers and acquisitions. So I work with single investors. I worked with Residential Inspector of America when Rob and Kat hired me to do some diligence on companies they were looking to acquire. And through my association with Rob and Kat, I began doing some work for Launchpad. And Wally told you who Launchpad is. And we really liked working together. We really liked working together. And I like the way that they treat people, and I like the way that they look at the industry. I like the way they elevate our industry. And so they offered me a position, and I said yes. So what do I get to do as Chief Performance Officer? My work is really twofold. The first part is looking at acquisitions that are people who may want to talk with us and finding out what are the numbers behind the numbers. What are the numbers telling us about this business? The other part is performance, and I get to work with all of our brands, trying to help them understand how to be more profitable. And one of the things that I get to do as well is I get to have a webinar with my friend Wally Conway every month. So this was last month's webinar. Those people, all of their companies were acquired by Launchpad. And they're not pretending to have those happy faces. This was a happy call. They were talking about all the wonderful things that had happened in their life since their company joined Launchpad. And so Wally and I are not having a webinar this month because we're here, but we are having a webinar in October. And so if you sign up for one webinar, you will get alerted to all the others. So Wally and I will post it on the Internachi Facebook page, our personal Facebook pages. If you want to be included on our mailing list, I'll put my email up at the end, and you can send me a note, and we'll include you on our list. So today we're talking about value. This is a little goofy internet meme, and I love these things. Sometimes they're goofy, and sometimes they're stupid, and sometimes they really inspire me. And what really inspired me about this one is value. The value of a thing is not necessarily the value of the thing. It's the value of how you utilize resources with the thing, right? So value is in utilization. Your company's value is how you utilize your resources, not just what they are. The other thing, value. Everybody here has worked with real estate agents and have worked with homeowners. Would you say it's fair to think that most homeowners think their house is worth more than it actually is? Definitely. Right? Right. That's because of perception. So value is often in the perception. Perhaps the true value of this house is what somebody else wants to pay for it, right? And a really smart appraiser told me, like, open market, willing buyer, willing seller, going price. So the value of something really is in your resources, how you utilize them, and the perception of somebody who might be considering buying it from you. And why talk about buying a business or even selling your business? You may not even be remotely ready for that conversation. But it's never too early to start thinking about maximizing the value of your business. If you didn't plan on selling for 10 years and you maximize the value of your business today, you will be more profitable. And if something happens, something unexpected, you will be ready. And so everybody exits their business, whether they plan to do it or, Wally Conway's favorite slide, they die in an attic. And my passion is to educate business owners to understand how to be most profitable and to not end up dying in an attic, and to be ready. The first thing you have to do here is get clarity. Before maximizing the value of your business, you have to get really clear on who you are and what do you want your business to do for you. Because who knows the cash flow quadrant? I'm sure a lot of you have seen this before. But if you're an employee, you have a job. And if you're a self-employed entrepreneur, you own a job. But if you are on either of those right-hand sides, you have a business that has systems and processes, or even better, you are an investor who can afford to walk away from your business for a couple of months at a time, the farther right you are, the greater the value of your business. So these are the questions to ask yourself. What's your passion? What do you really like to do? What do you want to do if you sell? Do you want to sell everything? Is there something you want to keep and retain? What are your cash needs? Are you willing to take a while? What is your timeline? Some exits take longer. Are you willing to wait as long as it takes to do that exit? Wally asks these questions of everybody who comes to him to have a conversation. I ask these questions, and you would be surprised how many people really don't know what it is they would like to do after exiting their business, or even who is their ideal buyer. There are people I've talked to who have family members they're planning to leave their business to. I have met family members who have discovered that the second generation doesn't want to stay with their parents' business, right? That might be their plan to leave it to their children, but the children may not want it. There may be a key employee who's really talented that says, I want to take over this business. These aren't created equal. External buyers are different than internal buyers, mostly because of timeline. Mostly because of timeline. It's going to take longer. If you think your business is worth X today and your second generation doesn't have X in the bank, they're going to be paying you over time. So that's a long game, but so is building a legacy, right? When you think about these things, there's also inherent risk. Do your family members, your employees understand how to run your business so that it will generate enough cash for them to pay you? So I've seen people do all different methods of exiting or planning for handing it over, but external buyers are different. And there are three kinds of external buyers. And the first one is an individual buyer. And I worked for one of those when I was consulting. He had never done an inspection. He had never worked in an inspection business. He knew nothing about home inspection. He wanted a couple of things. He wanted income and he wanted freedom. And he was a serial entrepreneur, and he knew that there wasn't a lot of inventory to worry about. And he thought, this is going to be great. Income and freedom, what he was looking for. When I did my diligence on the business he was looking to purchase, there were a lot of systems and processes that were not in place. There was very, very loose, even inspection scheduling. Half the time they didn't use their ISN to schedule an inspection. Somebody just did it on a piece of paper. It was really quite messy. So what he lost right there was freedom. He knew that if he acquired that business, he was going to have to come in and spend all of his time running it. Income and freedom. Has anybody read Main Street Millionaire by Cody Sanchez? Yeah, I know Rob has, because I think recommended it to Kat, and Kat recommended it to me. Or so. We've all been reading it, but it's a book about buying businesses and how you can buy businesses. And one of the big things she says is buy them so that you're not in there day to day doing the running of it. There are financial buyers, which would be like Launchpad, and looking for a high return and a strong team, because the strong team is going to lead you to the high return, right? And Launchpad is growing not just through acquisition, but from acquisition and then further growth. And you can't do that without team. Then you've got strategic or synergistic. That's a longer hold. And what this is your competitors. So I've done deals like this as well, where you have two companies and they're in a pretty big market and they're across town from each other and they really don't cross paths. They're going to get synergy there. It was really strategic acquisition for them to acquire. So these are all the different types of external buyers, and I've worked with all of them. Today we're mostly just going to talk about value for your business, and it begins with staging. So I know y'all know stagers because we work in the real estate industry. What do you see has happened between the before and after there? Cleaned up. Somebody in the morning session of this class said it's whiter and brighter. It looks better. Well, yeah, it's well presented.
The mirror is different above the car.
Awesome. That is fantastic. Yeah. What I see is less noise. I'm particularly affected by clutter. So what I see, literally, if you got rid of all that clutter and didn't even paint it, it would look better to me. When I look at a company who is wanting to have a conversation with anybody about selling, frequently what I see in their numbers is clutter and noise. I can't see the beautiful, white, shiny business that they are, because everything else that is all the numbers behind it and the record keeping and the systems and processes and bookkeeping is messy. So staging your business, it's not too soon to stage your business to get it ready for a conversation. And here's what staging involves. Tidy financials, and I don't just mean from a tax standpoint. I mean tidy, and that anybody could look at it and see what's what. You know, like if you have like 5 or 6 categories or 7 categories and your taxes are perfect, it doesn't tell somebody like me, how does your business operating? They have to be tidy. That one really should be number one. You in your business. You in your business. I spoke with someone who was considering selling his business to a strategic buyer, same state, just across the state. And my client said, let us know how this person looks, and discovered that the business phone number was his cell phone number, and that he scheduled all of the inspections, and that he did 25% of the inspections. So when that man would exit his business, what would be there? 2 inspectors without a phone number or a scheduler. So your role in your business is the biggest thing you can do to stage it. Can you move away from a entrepreneur, a self-employed entrepreneur? Can you move from there to a business owner and then toward an investor? And get really clear about your role in your business. There was somebody in our last class whose business was just getting started, and they had 2 inspectors and them, and he was wearing every hat. He was doing everything. He was running himself ragged. He said, you know, where do I start? I said, well, you start with, what is your superpower? And focus on that, And the marketing was something that he was really good at. I said, focus your efforts there and see what you can do to get assistance in the other areas. But get really clear, like your role, if your role is, I do absolutely everything, that should be your first task right now, is to try and write yourself not a job description, but like a roles and responsibilities for your company. Staging debt. Debt is something people don't like to talk about, and I see it all the time. And when I wrote business plans, it was actually my job to make sure people got their debt, they got their SBA loan. The question is, why is the debt there and how is it changing over time? If the debt is there for a short-term project, and you needed to hire somebody to, maybe you went to an expansion market, or maybe it was tools and equipment, maybe it was like IR cameras or sewer cams, that debt looks a lot different than debt that just starts small and keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Because when I see that, what that debt tells me is that this business model doesn't make sense. This business can't support itself. So if you're incurring debt, but it's continuing to get bigger, that would be something somebody like me would look at. Employees, not subcontractors, and I mean this relative to inspectors as opposed to like, if you're subcontracted like Rocket Station or VAs. Couple of things about employees, not subcontractors. Beyond the legality of it, there's a loyalty, perception of loyalty. Will 1099 inspectors leave you if you join with somebody else? And the other part of it is that if someone is acquiring you and they do their diligence and they pay their employer taxes, they're going to look at your business and realize, wow, well, I have to add employer taxes to this business model for it to make sense. Ancillary services. I guarantee if you offer ancillary services and you do all of them in-house, you have a greater profit margin than somebody that subcontracts out. Because you have to subcontract out and your subcontractor has to make some money. And I had a client who was reluctant to add sewer scope for years and finally did and said, I wish I had done it 3 or 4 years ago. Like, I wonder where I would be if I had added that sewer scope 3 or 4 years ago. So can you in-house everything that you possibly can? Pending claims or lawsuits, that one's sort of a no-brainer. We want to make sure that things are clean. Accounts receivable, that's not a lot of that in home inspection, but some people take larger contracts with companies to do maybe a bunch of rental inspections and they're holding accounts receivable. Management team and culture is a big one. If you've got a team of people who can run the business, that makes you very attractive. And market share trends. People frequently ask me, what's a good market share number? And my answer is always, I don't really care, which sounds weird, but it's not that I don't care, I care where it's trending. So if you have 1% market share, but you're trending up to 2% market share, but you're in a large market like Atlanta, that's very attractive. Versus if you have 15% market share and it's trending down to 13. Right? So it's more important where your market share is trending, and we'll look at some market share here today. Vehicles, equipment, leases. That question about what do you want to sell and what do you not want to sell. If vehicles and equipment are part of this, what do they look like? Are they in great shape? Do they require a lot of maintenance? Leases, do you have a long-term lease on an office that you stopped using when people started working more from home and you can't get out of it? These are the sort of staging things that you can start asking yourself today. But really the best way to stage your business is to pretend you're the buyer. Pretend you're buying your own business. Pretend you're buying somebody else's business. What would you want to see? And so today we're going to talk about maximizing value. Value of a business. If somebody says, I've got a valuation for you, they better have a CVA or a CBA. These two designations, these people are the only people qualified to say that they can value a business. Certified valuation analyst, certified business appraiser. If the person does not have either two of those designations, they cannot value your business. You cannot go into an online calculator and type in your top line revenue and have something deliver you the value of your business. A business broker will put a value on your business. When their initial conversation with you, they'll put a very high value on your business because it's in their best interest to sell it as high as they can for the commission. But they're not qualified to value your business. I have been part of almost 50 of these deals. I don't say that I value businesses. I say that I evaluate businesses. I do an evaluation. It's not just the value. It's all sorts of numbers. All right. It begins with your profit and loss. And this one's abbreviated just so that it all fits on one page, so it's not a recommended chart of accounts. But some industries will value based on top-line revenue. Pest control is a good one there because it's a lot of recurring contracts. And so often people who buy pest control companies are most concerned about the recurring contracts. Insurance companies too, right? Like just recurring revenue. Home inspection is a little bit different. We tend to look at businesses, whoops, let's stop. Here are all the numbers behind that top line revenue number. So when we looked at that $1.1 million on that profit and loss, when I see that 1.1 million, I want to know all these numbers because all of these numbers inform that number. And I'm not going to read all of them to you, but there are a couple big ones that are really important. Your revenue by category. If that $1.1 million company stayed about the same in revenue from year 1 to year 2. But what happened was that they dropped in home inspections and they picked up standalone radon tests. Even without looking at the profit and loss, I could tell you that they were less profitable. So your revenue by category is really important. Are you growing in the work that is the most lucrative for you? Or are you growing because you're getting a lot of like $85 rental inspections, and your cost to put that on the road is a lot higher. So I always look at revenue by category. Average fees is a big one. That's a real big one. So in all the businesses that I have seen, I look at average fee by scheduler. It's like by everybody that's scheduling the inspection. Frequently, the number one scheduler is the online scheduler for average fee. And I don't know what it is, and I don't know why, and I think it may just be part of our adds to cart mentality these days, that people have decision fatigue and they don't want to talk. You know, I know people, I don't like to even call a restaurant to give a reservation because my last name confuses people. It's got a Y and they think it's an I. I like to do stuff online. This could be why. Number 2 high average fee is frequently the owner of the company. Owners schedule high. It depends on geography, right? There are plenty of clients I had who were over $1,000 average ticket price for a home inspection. Yeah. Few. I can't say exactly. I don't want to like identify who they are, but mostly north. The farther north you get, or there are some in the south. A lot of it depends on things that you can't control, such as do you live in an area with a lot of failing sewers? It's going to be easy to sell a sewer scope, right? Do you live in an area with high radon? It's going to be easier to sell a radon test. But it doesn't always correlate to the cost of living or even the price of the house. Frequently, the people who have achieved that $1,000 average ticket price, half the ticket price comes from the base fee and half the price comes from the add-ons. So these are people who have the ability to add on, right? You know, the average fees I see are going up across the country, and I had a client who asked for some help, and I gave them advice as to how to raise their average fee, and they took my advice, and they had weekly meetings with their client care team, and inside 1 month, their average fee went up $100. So it's completely doable, and I've seen it dozens of times. But the average fee by scheduler is important because after the owner and the ISN online scheduler, it is not uncommon, and I mean I see this all the time, for there to be a $100 difference spread between schedulers. So you got 2 people doing all your scheduling, and literally one is $100 higher than the other, but when you look at the base fee, they're the same. So if they're scheduling apples to apples, and one is $100 higher, one person is upselling and one person's not upselling. And these are the things that make your business more valuable. Market share, we can talk about that. Your agent retention. I will look at your agents over time and see, are you keeping them? And it's okay if your model is to acquire new agents continually and work through them if you're in a big enough market to do that. It's just a business model. But I look at it. Your average fee growth. It's not necessarily what your average fee is, but is it at least on the rise, even just a little bit? Is your market growing? Capacity utilization is a big one. If you tell me I've got 12 inspectors, I, in my mind, kind of know how big I think your business may be from a revenue standpoint. And if it's half that big, that means you're keeping your team half as busy, which is not necessarily a bad thing. It could be that there's room to fill that calendar, or it could be that you have high inspector turnover, and I look at your numbers and I see that your inspectors are different every year. And the other one is scheduling software versus your profit and loss. Does it all line up? And we'll talk about that in a little bit here. And again, it's not necessarily what the numbers are, but how are they trending? So an inspection, when somebody wants to have a conversation and they ask to see your financials, we look at your income number, your profit. But there are things in your profit and loss where cash actually doesn't leave the business, or the reason cash leaves the business is you've made a personal decision to incur some debt. And that's depreciation and interest. That $12,000 didn't leave your business. And that interest expense was what you chose to take out debt on your cars. It could be for your personal car. So really, we're adding those numbers back to that income number right there. So to that income number right there, we're adding those things there. This number here is called EBITDA. If you hear people talk about it, it's just earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization. And EBITDA is how we multiply things in the home inspection industry when we're looking at a company to have a conversation.
What is an interest expense on, like just your revolving debt for your business?
It's just the expense on your debt, yep. Because here's the thing, if you sell your business, the debt you have goes away with it. You don't leave your debt behind. So if you take your debt with you, that servicing interest expense will go with you as well. Yeah, good question. So I get asked a lot of questions all the time. All the time. First question is, what is everybody else doing and how do I compare? Second question is how to pay inspectors. Third question is, what's the multiple people are selling their businesses for? And I can't give you an easy answer because it's all over the place. Bell curve, people know the bell curve, right? Most people are gonna end up like right around there. But you think about averages, like what's the average company go for? Well, if you put Shaquille O'Neal next to Kevin Hart, their average height would be 6'4". It doesn't say anything about either of them, right? Because you got Kevin Hart and you got Shaquille O'Neal, and then there's their average height. So there are things that you can do to move that multiple from wherever you are today to wherever you want to be. And that's maximizing the value of your business. So here's some things you can do. And you can do them today, even if you don't have a large team and even if you're just getting started out. Think about building a team. Don't just go out there and indiscriminately hire inspectors, but think about a team, and here's why. If 2 of those guys leave, that company still has 75% of its available capacity. They still have 75% if 2 people leave. But if 2 people leave this company, that leaves 1 person. And if that person is the owner, then you've got a purchaser of this company who's having risk. It's risk, right? So it's not just how many you have, but how loyal are they? Do they enjoy their work? Are they well rewarded? Do they stay year after year? So begin with building a team. Address your false profit. Oftentimes, people will present a profit and loss in a PDF where I can't see the detail behind it. And if they're running at like a 40% profit margin, I can guarantee that there are some things going on in there. And the first one is the owner doesn't take a paycheck. So there's somebody working in the business that's not taking a paycheck, and or the owner is working in the business and not taking a paycheck and inspecting full time. So if that's the case, no paycheck, inspecting full time, that just adds $200,000 to the bottom line right off the bat. So this is false profit, and it needs to be addressed. Family members in the business, same thing. If there's somebody in the business who is answering all of the phones and booking all of the inspections and working 45 hours a week, and that person is not taking a paycheck, then what that says to someone like me is this business model needs to make room for that salary. 1099 inspectors, we talked about that. That business model right there is missing employer tax, thereby lifting up the profit. Benefits and PTO are missing. It's not necessarily that you have to have benefits and PTO. It's just if you offer a lot of benefits and a lot of PTO, your profit might be lower than I see on average and the converse. So I just need to know, is that in there? Or how is that affecting the profit? Things that make your profit also look a little bit lower than what it actually is one-time contracts. If you bring in a consultant, maybe you bring in someone like me to work with you for 2 months to get your business in order. You bring in a change management person to help your inspectors through some change. You got a project manager helping you. You had a one-time unusual thing that you had to do. One-time unusual things are taken into consider. We understand that this is something that's never going to happen again, and it just happened one time. Tax-based decisions. At the end of the year, your CPA tells you go out and buy a bunch of stuff so you don't have to pay any taxes. That's going to make your profit look less. There are ways that you can do that so that someone like me can see it when we get in your books. You can use the income, expenses, net profit, other income, or other expenses. Other expenses, you could call that prepaid rent, or you could call it year-end purchases, or something to let you know, like, what is the true profitability of this business. Discretionary spending. I have seen everything. I've seen zero. I mean literally none. There is nothing in those books that does not 100% relate to the operation of the business. And I have seen like 100. I've seen negative entries in income for $5 for McDonald's, like repeatedly, like negative income, which is, it should just be an expense. But still, I mean, like just Chick-fil-A, McDonald's, like, and it's not, I can tell when I look at it, if it's $138 and it's Panera, that's you buying lunch for a group of real estate agents. But if it's $10 and it's Panera and it's Chick-fil-A and it's KFC and it's like every day of the week, that's discretionary spending. What that does is that makes you look less profitable. And intermingled businesses. If you have another business that you're starting and your home inspection business is kind of helping it move along, and it's somewhat related, but not related. Maybe it's a remediation business. If you put all of those in the same set of financials, it's really hard to tell how is the home inspection business profitable or isn't it? And someone like me has to go through this stuff with a comb. And if you're not even clear about your books, I have to just guess. I just have to guess. This looks like a personal cell phone bill. This looks like that. This looks like it might be for the environmental company, but I'm not really sure. And frequently when I ask people, they don't know because they're just doing their books to file taxes.
Question. So on your income statements, you would separate the different ancillary services?
If they're related to the home inspection business and they are something that's part of your package, no. I mean, you might separate out how much they're costing you, like your lab fees and radon monitoring calibration fees. But if you have something in your same set of books that's a completely different business, like with different employees, remediation business, or pest control, pest control and home inspection, generally speaking, and I'm pretty easygoing. I don't like to say rules, but they really should not be in the same set of books because pest control has, you sell the job, and then you pay the inspectors, and then you have the cost of all the supplies, and then the money comes in, and it's all not in the same period, right? That requires a different type of accounting than home inspection. But there are ways you can do it in your books. You could, let's say you have a handyman business, and let's say you have, what's another service-based business? Handyman, painting, something like that. I have a client that does a home check, like they watch over people's houses during vacation. In your books, your accountant can put things in different classes and buckets. So it's a matter of putting it in different buckets so that, like that staging picture, it takes all the noise away. Because we really want to understand how profitable is the home inspection business.
But I don't know what you meant was, but so in your revenue, it's your home inspection, whatever those fees are in your revenue, your sewer scopes are in your revenue, your
Yeah.
rate of your revenue. And then
Yeah.
if you're doing it on your own, it's revenue, you're not, and then if you're paying somebody to do it for you.
Yeah, I mean, if it's that type of revenue, if it's something that you do that attaches to a home inspection, I'm not as worried about it because it's all part of your home inspection business. And your scheduling software will tell me where the revenue is coming from. I mean, I've seen people where their accountant has 27 revenue streams on the profit and loss, but you also know if you're using ISN, you can just run inspection by type report and learn the same thing.
That's not intermingling.
No, yeah.
I just to clarify,
Excellent question.
that's revenue that's part of your expense.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm talking about revenue from different entities. Yeah. And, and it gets noisy because let's just say you're starting a handyman business or a remediation business, but your client care team is answering the phones for those businesses. Then all of a sudden your client care number has gone up, but we don't know by how much, right? So we don't know what your true client care number is because they're jumping between two different companies. So good bookkeepers can figure out a way to separate this for you so that it can be very clear. And even if you never, ever thought about exiting your business, I had a client who worked with me, and they were losing money and they didn't know why, and they had 4 revenue streams of different companies. So not like SewerScope and ancillaries, they actually had 4 different businesses, okay? We found out that the home inspection business was wildly profitable. And we found out that other 2 businesses were just barely profitable, and we found out that one was really losing money, right? It's important because now you know. And even if you're winning, even if you're growing, and your profits are going up and up and up and up, and you've got 4 businesses in a set of books, you need to know which one's informing your growth there, right? It's important. Okay, we talked about discretionary intermingled. Scheduling software versus profit and loss. The way it used to work back in the day was nobody charged convenience fees. Your home inspection was $500. You charged your client $500. Your merchant deposited $500 in your bank, and at the end of the month, you got $231 ding for their merchant services. Then what happened is that people started charging convenience fees. In ISN, you charge it as just what you think it's going to be. And so ISN now, if you do a $500 ticket, it reports your revenue as $505 or whatever you add for a convenience fee. So you turn on your ISN, you look at it, it says $505. $500 hits your bank. Now that's easy when you look at it from a 1 ticket at a time thing. But what happens at the end of the month? At the end of the month, your ISN says you did $90,000 in revenue, and your bank says that you had got, I don't know, like $85,000 in deposits. So they don't line up anymore. The question is, by how much do they not line up? Because there's a tendency to say, oh, that's just convenience fees. That's the difference. But anytime I've done this exercise with any of my past clients when I was consulting, I would say, I know that you think it's convenience fees, but that difference there is 7%. That can't be convenience fees. It's got to be something else. It could be cash not making its way to the bank. That's less common these days as fewer people pay for things in cash, but it could be. It could be. Can you prove it to anybody purchasing your company who looks at your profit and loss and sees $1.1 million, but your ISN said $1.2 million? Can you prove that $100,000 difference? It could be theft, and I have seen it. So knowing the difference between your ISN or whatever scheduling software you use and your profit and loss, and knowing why they're different and having that make sense is important to maximizing the value of your business. The other one is payroll detail. So that example I put up before of a profit and loss, it just said payroll, $745,000. Someone like me looks at your books, and you're using QuickBooks Online, so I double-click on payroll to see what it is, and it's just account and journal entries. Payroll January, payroll February, payroll March. I don't know who's in there. I don't know if you were in there or your kid's in there. How much of that belongs to your inspectors? It's really nearly impossible to evaluate a home inspection business without understanding what the inspectors are earning. So separating out payroll, the best books I've seen, like you click on it and there are names. Everybody's name is in there. Minimally, can you organize it by department? Inspector payroll, administrative team payroll, marketing payroll. Could you do that? Understand your growth. Let's say you're growing, and this person right here, that's the zero line. So literally every single month except December of 2024, they were up. So this just means that they were up, 17% in July 24 in number of tickets versus July of 2023. And then this same thing is just revenue. This is important to know because what we don't want to see is we don't want to see ticket growth going down. Ticket growth going down means it could mean your market is in decline, or it could mean that you are in decline. And we love to see revenue growth. It has a natural cap. I mean, those clients I told you, my clients with like $900, $1,000 average ticket prices, and we'd love to think that they can just keep going up, but they're gonna level out after a while, right? So we need to understand why you're growing, and it's great for you to understand why you're growing. Am I growing because I'm doing more work, or am I growing because either I raised my prices or I hired somebody who's getting my average ticket price higher? The other one is understanding what I call your relative growth. So I'll walk you through this graph here, and the zero line is red. So let's start with the blue line. In January of 23, this company was down about 28% in revenue. This is revenue. No, I'm sorry. This is inspections. They were down 28% in inspections over January of 22. Their market was down like 43% in number of homes sold over January of 2022. What happens is that this company was down, but yeah, their market was down, and a lot of markets are down. A lot of you are in down markets, and that's everybody's doing the best they can in a down market. But here's the important thing: this company was down, but not by as much as their market was, for all the months until something happened here, where they were about the same, and now the market is almost over zero. If you were to put a trend line on these numbers for the past year, the market is trending up. Their number of inspections is trending down. So what this means is that this company, for a while there, they were down because their market was down, but they were outperforming, and now they're underperforming. So the quick and dirty way to do this math for yourself would be to look at, the last 6 months of your company versus the same 6 months in 2024. And how much were you down in tickets or up? And then look at your local real estate numbers for the same period. Were they down or up? Right? So if you're up 5% and your market is down 2%, you're doing great. You're outperforming your market. It doesn't feel good to be down. Nobody likes it. But gaining market share in a down market is something that will maximize your value, because real estate is cyclical and things do change. Understand what add backs and burdens are. So we have that EBITDA number that gets multiplied, but there are things that we can add to that number to make it bigger. So the first thing we add is departing owner's salary. If the owner is not acting as a full-time inspector, but is running the business, but plans to retire fully and is going to leave, we can add back that owner's salary and benefits. Some people I know pay their children through the business. We can add that back. Their life insurance, owner health insurance. If an owner is departing, we can add back all of that. Now, the reason I say it's departing owner salary and not distributions is that from that $157,000 profit, add the other stuff to make the EBITDA number $170,000. Of that $170,000, that's what the business is based on. Your distributions come after that. So your distributions come out of the profit. So you can't add them back. They are an after-the-fact item. Discretionary spending. I see somebody's Verizon bill. I see everybody on the team drives a Ford Escape and the owner, leases a Mercedes, things like that. Those types of things I will add back to EBITDA. Rent and utilities. If the building is owned by the seller and there's no lease and everybody works from home and nobody uses the office anymore and it's not going to be needed, but they've been paying themselves rent, we can add that back. Autos that disappear, some of the maintenance associated with all of those cars we can add. Contributions, charitable contributions. So if we see contributions for Association of Realtors, we understand that that's a marketing expense. But if we see like Make-A-Wish Foundation or American Cancer Society, or if somebody tithes to their church, those are the types of things that are also add backs. And one-time unusual expenses, things like you hired a project manager for 2 months on a project and that expense will never come back. We can do that. But there are also things called burdens, where if we look at a business, and we say, when I say we, I don't necessarily mean Launchpad, I mean we, like the collective group of all the people I've worked with doing these things, and see that employer tax is missing, we have to take that into account, including benefits and replacing an owner role. If an owner is scheduling 40 to 50% of the inspections, we have to make room for a salary for somebody to do that. And somebody asked me once, well, what about all that other stuff that, like if you buy my company, Launchpad has people to do that. It doesn't matter whether it's an individual buyer or a financial buyer. Like, even though we may not need your accountant, we still have to pay for accounting. We still have to pay for all of those things. Anyone who buys you is going to have to pay for all those things. It's just that they may get synergy because they have a way of doing it that's very efficient for them. Look back. I saw for a period of time, people would present things to me called valuations, and they would have like a 36-month look back, and they would average the profit for 36 months, and then multiply that by an average multiple in the industry. The problem with look backs is that our industry has been so volatile. Like if you look at an average profit of a company from 2020, 2021, and 2022, each one of those years is going to look very different. 2021 looked so different for so many companies. So many companies I know were wildly profitable beyond their dreams in 2021. That was an anomaly. That was something that I've not seen since, and maybe we will see it one day, but we're not seeing it today. So when I look at evaluating a business, I tend to look at its most recent performance 12 months. So not just 2024, I'm looking at their trailing 12 months. And trailing 12 months is a great thing to play around with, and it's not hard. Even if you don't like looking at your books, you certainly could look at your scheduling software. And you could see that from August of 2024 through July of 2025. Remember, 12 months is not August to August. That's 13 months. August of 24 to July of 25. What was my top line revenue? All right. If you normally take a dip in September, like back to school, or like in my hometown, there's a big fair and 4-H and all that kind of stuff. It tends to be a bit demoralizing. Oh, we're down. Yeah, September, we're down. But if you look at like September of this year, if you look at September of last year through the end of August of this year, and you keep doing it, every time you gain a down month, you lose one from the year prior. Does that make sense? I'm trying to explain this without a graph. If you're always looking at 12 months, you're always dumping slow months. If you have 1 month that has like 3 payroll periods, which I see a lot, in any given year, if you pay 26 pay periods, you're going to have 2 months of the year where you have three payroll periods. But you lose one of those and you gain one of those. You lose one, you gain one. Trailing 12-month metrics truly show where your business is trending. And it's something I look at in every company I work with. I'm looking at trailing 12, what's happening. And for most of you, I see positive trends there. It's just that it doesn't feel like that. Yeah.
Are single inspector firms, are they sellable, or is that kind of like?
Yeah, willing buyer, willing seller, open market, right? Let's just say somebody actually called me, and he was leaving the area, and he was a single inspector, and he wasn't sure even how to sell his business. And there's value in his book of business, right? You can't buy his business because when he leaves, he is the business, right? But there's still value in the real estate agent relationships and the phone number. It's just that the structure will look different, right? A lot of people tend to see it as I'll pay you this much for every lead I convert, or I'll pay you this much for every phone call that comes in. And if you usher through your agents to me in a way that makes us look really attractive, the more of those I'm going to convert and the more of those you get, right? So what are you willing to pay if you're paying, and these are not a recommendation, this is just big round numbers, but if you think 10% to spend on marketing is fair and the average ticket price is $500, you can say, I can pay you $50 for every lead I convert. So there are ways to do it. There are ways to do it, yeah. Yep. But the most recent 12 months is the important. Now, look back to see how far you have come. If I look back 3 years and I see growth every year for 3 years, what that does is that might affect that multiple, that X number. That's going to affect the 25 things in my mind that say I think this company is going to go this many X's, right? And it's like really super strong growth year over year over year. So this is just a summary slide. The only thing I didn't touch upon is your variable expenses. This is literally what it takes to get the inspection on the road, and this is your inspector wages, their payroll tax, any benefits, fuel, or mileage reimbursement, lab fees, subcontracted services. If all of that is running under 50% of every dollar, you've already maximized the value of your business, right? What happens is, you may have to move to, as you grow, like a revenue-generating team leader, and that number is going to make your cost of putting the inspection on the road a little bit higher. And you're going to grow, and as you grow, you're going to need more infrastructure, and that takes money. And if you're already in it for 60% of every dollar just to get the inspection on the road, that leaves 40%, which is great. You can do a lot with 40%, but what's not in that 40% is your profit, right? So we like to see those expenses under 50. We talked about all of these, agent retention, employee retention, but really just think like a buyer. That's the number one thing, is think like a buyer. Present a document. Put all these things. Here are my average fees. Pardon me? Oh, it is. Okay, great. Thank you. That's actually the last slide, so. Yeah.